Hey, it's August 31st, and you know why we're here. So let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I am Gerissar, a PvP Padawan.
Hey, my name is Bigmoran, and I do not like BM hunters.
Right out the gate. What about windwalkers? Do you like windwalkers?
Eh, I like them until they attack me. It's from a distance, they're okay, but when they're in your face, it's like, hey, man, step back. Social distance from me, please.
Oh, is that? That's why I like to run Shining Force on my Disc Priest. Just get
That's
away from
right.
me. All right. Well, and it's just us. It's just us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Andolin is off on a sunny beach somewhere, enjoying his honeymoon with his new wife. They tied the knot there just a little bit ago, so he will be back next episode. But thank you again, Big, for joining us. And as we're talking a little bit off show, there, you're going to be here a bit more often, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess I'm crowd controlled now by technically PvP, but no, I was here last week or 2 weeks ago rather, and it's
Mm-hmm.
been nice to be on the cast again, and I'm going to be taking a more regular position here, and I'm really excited for that. But yeah, for the meantime, while Andolin's stuck away in his own crowd control, I'll be here, and hopefully I'll be joining you guys for twice a month.
Yeah. So would you be under a snare DR and he'd be under an incapacitate?
It's something like that. But I'm a druid, I can shift. I can
There you
shift out of those snares, so it's no problem. I can weasel my way out of here at any moment.
go. Well, hopefully you give us a warning before you pop your form change. But in the
But
meantime, why don't we talk about what we've been up to since the last show? I'll start with you, Big. What have you been up to, in game or out?
um, okay, so I don't know if I told you this last time, but I got rear-ended in my car, which sucks.
So,
But
no, no, sorry. The last time we talked, you were talking about how you had a leak in your trunk. There was
yes, and so as karma would have it, there was I fixed that problem,
okay.
and then it was like the day after, 2 days after, I got rear-ended in my car, and so I've been kind of dealing with that, which sucks. It's some bad moral luck. Maybe I did something. I mean,
Uh,
again, this is karma or something, but in game, I
hmm,
haven't been playing as much, but I've been capping arena every week, and then just
okay.
yesterday we released at Skill Cap a really cool video, and I was really
Yeah.
proud of how it came out, and it seems like it's been received quite well.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I liked it so much. I did comment on that, but I was actually added into the show notes here for end of the news because I thought it
Oh,
was
yeah.
such a good video. I mean, really, we could talk about it right now if you wanted, but I really enjoyed it. I like uh, the kind of the pacing of the video and how it talked about what PvP damage was like and how it's progressed over time. I think you and the team there at Skill Cap did a phenomenal job on that.
Well, thank you very much, and we can talk more on that later because I think it does kind of go in with a lot of the themes that we're going to be discussing in this show today. So
I
I'm
agree.
eager to talk. I'm eager to talk about my precious child. This video.
Are you gonna coddle it? Just kind of, oh, it's my precious, my precious. Come
That's I'm gonna be that annoying parent that just spams it everywhere, like on social media.
Well, I have to admit it was really good. So it again, if anybody hasn't seen these already over on Twitter, like I said, it's going to be in the show notes. Go ahead, just scroll down in the show notes while we're talking. Zip over there, watch it over on YouTube at Skillcapped and the Skillcap channel there, and come on back over to the podcast after you're done, and then you can listen to the rest of this. For me, I'll be honest, I didn't really do much PvP wise. I went and did a couple of winter grasps because the Epic BG was the weekly, so
Mhm.
it kept queuing me into winter grasp as the alliance, and we were constantly on the defensive, or not on the defense. We're on the offense, so we didn't do well. We didn't win. Um, and I'll be honest, I think I was like 300 honor points short. I was doing it Sunday night and Monday night. And I was like, no, it's just not working. So I just gave up, and so I didn't make my weekly for that. And I did some random EG stuff and that kind of stuff. But otherwise, basically just kind of till around and did a bunch of transmogs. I started running a bunch of old because I realized on my priest I didn't have any of the tier 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 sets. I'm still missing a bunch of
Mm.
pieces, so I just went through and did a whole bunch of classic and Burning Crusade raids and finished with those. Well, actually, no. I went all. Sorry, I went all the way up to Cata because I actually went into Firelands there
Wow.
yeah. So actually, wow. So that went up to what's that? What's that? Tier 7? Tier 8?
Cataclysm would be tier like 13 or like
Okay.
12, 13.
Well,
I don't know.
I skipped over Icy because I did a whole bunch of Wrath, so I skipped over all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, so that kept me busy pretty much all week. And yeah, I didn't get any loot boxes because I didn't do enough to earn loot boxes. Did you get anything from the Great Vault?
Yeah, I got one box for PvP. It was actually an upgrade, so I can't complain. Last week I was a bit upset because I got a weapon in my box, which is great, but I bought a weapon the previous week. So it's like, well, damn. You know, it's like
Isn't that
taunting me.
isn't that always the way? Right at, you're like, you're trying, you don't get the drop, you turn around and you buy the weapon or you buy and then it drops the next. Yeah, uh,
Yeah,
it is what it is. Hey,
that's right.
just quickly, up and coming because this is time walking week for Wrath of Lich King, and that so the 5 time walking dungeons does drop some pretty nice loot. Are you gonna run time walking, or are you just gonna focus on PvP anyways?
Maybe I'll do it on my alt because I don't know if there's a time walking raid. If there's a time walking raid, the gear is actually pretty decent for
Mm-hmm.
PvP if you just need some entry level gear. I think I think last time time walking was in the game. I believe it was, I don't remember if it was Missa Pandario time walking was the last one. I don't remember. In any case, that the gear I
Yes.
believe is 226 item level, which is, that's as good as honor gear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not bad to use that in PvP. So maybe I'll do that on alts or something.
Yeah, I think you're right actually because it's time walking. The Ulduar time walking raid should be available.
Oh
So,
yeah. That one's pretty good because there's a lot of bosses on that one.
oh yeah,
Um, and depending on your class, you can get some nice gear from that raid.
yeah, and some good achievements.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know. It makes me wonder actually if people actually do hard mode on the bosses or not, or if they just do them regular style. Because it's not like it really matters. I don't think it really matters that much in the time walking raids. But I don't know. If anybody's listening and if you are doing the Ulduar time walking raid, let us know if you do the bosses in hard mode or if you just do them in regular. In the meantime, I guess oh shoot, it's Need Greed pastime, and I am not prepared.
Wait, I am prepared because I was actually thinking of this. I was preemptively thinking of a need greed pass.
You are amazing. Well,
Oh,
let's do the bumper, and then we'll get into the actual thing.
that's right. Okay.
This likely won't be a clean fight.
So for those of
So
you guys who
keep your
don't know,
distance, eh?
need greed pass is where I gotta have a topic every week, and we choose 3 things. One of those
Mm-hmm.
things is something that you would need. That's something you really want, and you get to need one thing. You get to greed one thing, which means, oh, you kind of like it, but it's not as you don't need it as much as your need. And then finally, the pass is something that you'd be willing to give up. So for this week, we have 3 things, and these are 3 abilities that your character could get in Arena, and they wouldn't share a cooldown with any other abilities. They would just be 3 unique abilities that your character could have. So the
Oh,
first would be infinite mobility. So that means you could never be slowed, never be snared, nothing. You just move freely throughout the map the entire game. The
okay.
second would be similar to that power up you get in Torghast, where there's that one where once a floor you can die and you'll resurrect without
Yep.
any penalty. So that would be the second power up that you could have in Arena. So it'd be a resurrection once per game on your character. So the third one would be something that existed in Miss of Pandaria for warriors. It was I don't remember what it was, disrupting shout. It would be an AoE interrupt. So at any moment throughout the game, you could AoE, you could press this one button and it would interrupt everyone who is casting, regardless of how far away they are. So you have an infinite mobility option, the ability to resurrect once per game in arena, just freely, and then finally an AoE interrupt. So do you have any thoughts of what you would need, greed, and pass for this one?
Yeah. um, I would instantly need on the infinite mobility, guaranteed.
Mm.
Yeah, because that can be used so much, not just in arena, but also in BGs.
Oh yeah.
Like that's just so awesome. And I so rogues have always been the bane of my existence. I don't know how many times
Hmm.
I get sapped and just I'm just I just take my hands off the keyboard now. Like I just wait for it to happen. It's like yeah, it's not pleasant for me. So being able to have infinite mobility and be able to just ignore whatever rogue's trying to do with me and run away from them, it's just
Hmm.
perfect. Then the next two would. This one's hard because it kind of depends on the class, whatever I'm running. Because the resurrection once per game would be so fun. It's almost
Hmm.
like it's almost up there with like the warlock with the soul gem, right? You'd be able to self res yourself. It's like, oh, you're dead. No, he's back. I think that's so much fun. I think it has some really fun uh, play counter to it, where you wait, you die, and then you pop it, and you come back, and by that time they've already blown all their cooldowns, and so then you can turn around and do something.
Yeah.
So I think that's really awesome. And just by that, if I greed that, I have to pass on the AOE interrupt. But that's a tough call. Like, because if I could totally see how AOE interrupt would be so amazing in PV. Well, it's just like back when the Blood Elf had the extra interrupt, right? Yes,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it was game
Void
changer.
torrent or whatever.
Yeah, because you
Arcane
could
torrent.
arcane torrent. Yeah, because you'd use your one stun and then they start casting, thinking that they were kind of get away, and then you could stun them again. You could knock the or stop the next cast, and that was usually the gimme. It'd be the thing that would either make or break and give you the kill. So that's that one's tough, but I'm gonna go with the resurrection just as a greed.
Okay.
How about yourself there? Out of these ones, which ones are your choices?
I would actually need on the AoE interrupt.
Yeah.
I think that would be really fun to play with, and I've always been really envious of healing class. Like I've always been envious of shamans for having a ranged interrupt, and it's always been like,
Mhm.
dang, like I wish I had one as a resto druid. Druids used to have an interrupt back in the day, but no longer. So I think having that would be really fun. So I'd need on that, and then between the other two, between infinite mobility and being able to res. I think I would go with mobility, uh,
Yeah.
because not guaranteed to get value out of the resurrection once a game, but you can always get value from mobility,
Hmm.
and I think having more mobility buffs everything else about your character. So I would
True.
need the AoE interrupt, greed infinite mobility, and then pass on the resurrection.
All right. I like it. Well, I'll throw that to the chat room as well, and people listening at home. What are your choices? Would you need greed and pass on? So if you're in chat right now, go ahead and type it out and start the conversation. If you're sitting at home or in the car, hey, send us in an email, technically pvp@gmail.com, and let us know what your thoughts are. Uh, which ones would you need on? Be interesting. I can't wait to see what people think. A
Hmm.
great little comment in the chat room as well is the kick would be great, but it needs to be off GCD.
Oh
So,
yeah, okay.
that's a good question. Would these be on GCD or off GCD?
So I don't think there's any interrupt in the game that's currently on GCD. So I think it would be just like every other interrupt. It would be off the global cooldown. The resurrection would just be a passive. It's once you die, you just get a little button that'd be like, "Hey, do you want to res now?" And you'd be like, "Up, I want to res now."
Yeah, why not?
And yeah. So these
Would
things
you
would be very snappy.
would you pop the resurrection immediately as soon as you died, or would you wait until they peeled over to the next target?
Um, yeah, I think you'd always have to wait. If you want to be smart, you have to wait till the perfect time, right? Like you don't want to use it when someone's like AoEing or something, or
Mm-hmm.
you have to be really calculated with something like that.
Yeah, it would suck if you popped it and then immediately got whacked again.
Yeah,
That would
I, I
suck.
I've I've seen clips from like Mythic race when they're doing the race to world first or whatever. I saw a clip where someone took like a soul stone or something and immediately died. Like
Yeah.
they got hit by some AoE, just instantly died again. So you want
Yep.
to avoid that,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yes. Thankfully, we don't have boss level damage happening in arena,
No.
right?
Oh, okay, kind of. So, hope we have mini bosses.
All right. Well, let's talk about the upcoming WoW PvP events and see what's happening in the near future.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
So it looks like Dalaran Gaming is hosting a 5v5 Pokemon style 1v1 tournament. So I guess that's going to be teams of 5, and they're going to send players out one by one, like it's Pokemon, and they
Exactly.
battle. And once if someone lives, then the next person in the other team comes in and tries to take them down, and this goes until one, there's the last
Last
man
person.
standing,
Exactly.
right? For either team. That sounds like I've always liked that format. It's pretty
Mhm.
exciting. Sometimes you get someone who's like so good on the team that they kill 4 people, and you're like, oh dang. But I mean that's always impressive. But yeah, those sorts of tournaments are always fun to watch.
Yeah. I think there's one. I can't remember somebody. I can't remember who was talking about where there's one where it's like it was the one person came out and they basically ran. They ran through the whole other team until like the fifth player came out, kind of thing. It was like it
Ye-
was absolutely amazing. So I
Yeah.
don't have a date on the next time Dalaran is actually doing this. I just know that he does it regularly. Sometimes it's every weekend. Sometimes he misses a weekend or two. So it's always kind of a you got to go watch his Twitter feed and see when he announces it. So that said, he does do regular still like just dual streams where he's out there dueling and just a whole bunch of testing and especially now the PTR is coming up. He's probably going to be over there dueling over on the PTR and having fun. So it should be a good time.
Hmm.
The one thing we do have that's an actual date is the Oasis community. They're going to be doing. So we talked earlier that they're going to be streaming some fun RPG war games just to raise awareness on their toxic free community and to kind of showcase RPGs. And the next date is actually this Friday on the 3rd. So if you want to participate and if you have been hesitant to getting into rated battlegrounds, this is totally just for fun. There's some people that thought it was going to be super serious, but it's like there's no pre-practice. There's not like rank 1 teams are coming in to just raffle stomp people. This is just a bunch of people getting together, have some fun in a slightly competitive atmosphere, but not the same that you would have on ladder or something like that. So if you're interested, go over to the Oasis community Discord, and they have an option there to sign up as a free agent, and then any of the team captains will pick you up. It's kind of a first come first serve. So yeah, link for the Twitter announcement is going to be in the show notes, so go check that out. And I guess the next one is just the Blizzard tournaments. So so the circuit's just finished, right?
Right. Yep.
So I think this weekend is going to be the start of the group play for the MDI, and that's going to be interesting. So
Hmm.
I think I tweeted it earlier. So the first ones, they have it broken down. The 24 teams broken down into 3 groups. So teams of 8. So the first group's playing this weekend, and the dungeons and the team, or yeah, so the dungeon, the affixes have been announced. So teams have been practicing this week, and then we'll see what that looks like on the weekend. I have to admit, this is pretty exciting. There's some pretty good affixes, and most of the keys are around the 20. I think there's like some 19s, some 20s, and I think there's a couple 22s, if I remember correctly, on the keys. So this should be pretty fun. And pardon me?
I was gonna say that's better than I've ever done. I'm not very good at Mythic Dungeons.
Yeah, some of them are just nuts. I was watching some of the practice, and one guy was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna hop over to my paladin," and they did like 4 or 5 pulls on this one. It was just like running in, and they're just like they basically pulled all the trash from the start all the way to the first boss, and then just and survive. Well, the first couple times they didn't survive. But then they got their interrupts sorted out and rotated their cooldowns, and it was just it was absolutely insane. I think it was just a wall. You can even see the graphics of the monsters or anything. It was just a wall of nameplates on the screen. It was nuts.
If you queue into a demo Warlock in Arena, you get this very similar experience.
You've played against Lika then, I guess.
I've seen his stream. I've seen the nameplates.
Yes, it's up there. He does. It's just like running into all those imps. But so this should be really interesting. If you're interested in the MDI, go check it out. That's going to be streamed over on the YouTube channel, if I remember correctly, exclusively, because they're still in that deal. And once that finishes on the 25th and the 26th of September, we're going to have the grand finals for the AWC for EDU and NA. So I'm pretty excited about that. That was yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's the top 4 teams for those who are listening on EU. On NA. It's Method, Cloud9, Unitas, and Golden Guardians. And then on EU, it's Skill Capped, Horizon, Method EU, and Reload Esports. The competition is just getting better and better every season.
Oh yeah.
Like just so many great players, so many great teams that, man, like, yeah, it's just, I'm hungering for a BlizzCon, I'm wanting these two, the 2 regions to collide again, because it'd be really exciting. Yeah.
I really I loved where Unitas started and how they just kept climbing all the way to the finish line. It was absolutely amazing to watch them. Some of the other the teams that came out of the relegation cup were surprisingly they held their own. It was really good to see. And I was really surprised to see how some of the teams that had won the first circuit, how they performed in the second circuit. I was really surprised by that. But I was not surprised that once again Skill Capped and C9 came out like on the top. Like they're both powerhouses.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. In both regions, you kind of have like 2 teams that are doing way better than the other teams, but that's not to say that the other teams aren't good. It's just like there's clear dominance in both regions by pretty much 2 teams each.
Yeah,
but it's crazy how competitive things are.
Oh, exactly. And like you said, I'd love to see a Skill Cap versus C9. I think that would be that would be epic. We'll get there eventually. It'll come back, right? We have to believe. We have to believe.
Hopefully.
All right. Let's get into the subject analysis then, and we're going to talk about 9.1.5 and the preview that came out and some of the other stuff. I think I'll do the bumper first here. One sec.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
There you go. I'm so horrible with this. I miss Andelin. He's so used to doing all the buttons in the background, so I can just talk and not have to push them. But yeah, so we're going to talk about 9.1.5 preview that was announced and some of the other posts that came up in the last week. First and foremost, let's talk about the development update message to the WoW community. I think this was spectacular. This was an amazing kind of letter to the community, if you will. How would you describe this, Big? Like, what would your TLDR be on this letter?
Well, for me, it's a bit bittersweet because, so, I don't think it should come as any surprise that WoW has been struggling a bit. And
No.
yeah, who who'd have thought? But anyway, so the WoW devs essentially released this letter, like saying, "Hey guys, we've heard your concerns. We know that there's some things we can do to fix the game, or not necessarily fix the game, but make the game better. And so we're gonna try a bit harder to do some of those things, and maybe communicate a bit better with the community." And so I think for many people, it was received as again kind of like bittersweet. It's like, okay, like why not earlier? Like where was this before?
Yeah.
Because some of the changes, I'm sure we'll get to them in a bit, are ones that people it's just some of them just seem very obvious. Some of them, like if you spend any time on Twitter, like okay, people have been complaining about this for months now, and so it can be a bit frustrating to. It's nice to have your desires met, but it can be a bit frustrating to complain for so long and have change come so delayed after months of that complaining. But it's I understand sort of the push and pull that maybe Blizzard is under in these situations.
Yeah. So I have to agree that this seemed a little long, and I think so. It's funny because I titled this podcast "They Are Listening," and this is kind of what they're saying is that hey, we are listening. We listen to what you said, and we're making some of these changes,
Hmm.
but I, and they always say yeah, we're listening, we're listening to your feedback, we're taking it in and everything. But at the same time, you need to get some response back, and I think this is part of where they really fail is they're so busy listening and then trying to respond in game, like just take action, that there's no actual response to the community. I think a year, almost a year since release, definitely a year since beta, PTR, and all the other stuff, and now they're responding saying, "Yeah, we're listening to you." I think
Yeah,
that's the part where people are really they're just a lot of people are just done. I mean, there was some great comments from around. Well, there's a lot of comments from around the community. Some people are like you said, just like you, a little bittersweet. They're I think it's just too many times. Yeah, we're listening. Yeah, we're listening. And yet here it is a year later, and they're like, okay, now we're actually going to do what you thought we should do a year ago.
right.
Um, but I guess as far as a video game and trying something new and basically doing a social experiment, uh, do you not think that at least it hit that mark where it's like no, they held to their guns, they tried something, they tried this whole covenant thing, tried to put everybody in, make choice matter. Do you think it gave them the feedback that they needed to make to make a better iteration for that next time if they do want to make a change matter, to make it where changing your covenant or changing where you get your borrow power will be meaningful? Do you think what do you think about that?
Unfortunately, I think I'm a bit pessimistic here because last it might be covenants this expansion, but last expansion it was corruption, and people were complaining about that and how it's going to create kind of a toxicity towards gear and gearing and itemization. Then eventually they added the corruption vendor on a rotating cycle, which is kind of like a clunky fix of that problem.
Mm-hmm.
In previous expansions, I don't remember what exactly the system was like in Legion. I mean, I know they had a catch up system for artifact weapons that came in much later, but
Mm-hmm.
there's always some sort of predominant whatever system they add to the game. It's always and Holinka said this in his interview with Venruki. It's nice when everyone's rising at the same level. So at the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
expansion, everyone's spending the same amount of time doing their covenant stuff, doing their whatever stuff, And so you kind of have everyone rising at an equal pace.
Yeah.
So there's not these massive disparities, but as the expansion goes on, it's like, well, that's when the disparities tend to reveal themselves, and it's like, ah, man, like if only this system could be more friendly to my alts, then maybe I'd make a new character, and so I think it really at times is is very fun for players to have these systems, but eventually they become very frustrating. They kind of seem like another gate, another obstacle that you have to hurdle, and that
Mm-hmm.
can be a bit frustrating, I think.
Yes, and I think in the state of PVE, it's not that big of a deal. I think in PVE, I mean, I guess it is a big of a deal in the if you have to, if somebody says here's the bar, you have to be able to reach this in order to join us, and and your alt is way back here because, or like, let's say you switch mains in between an expansion, now you have to go through all this stuff of catching up to get back up to that bar that somebody set for you to be able to do that content. Sure. I think that's the problem where PvP really affects is, you know, if you're wandering into the playground where all the adults are, and you got, like, the worst of the gear, you have like a stick and a wiffle ball bat maybe, and like a plastic cloak or whatever. In the meantime, you're going up against somebody wearing full kitted out armor that they put together and masterfully finished in the last over the last year. You can't really stand toe to toe. It doesn't work
Yeah,
out that
well,
well.
well, even I know even the competitive PVers, the mythic raiders,
Hmm.
everyone involved in the race to world first was complaining about some of the systems. I know the new shards became kind of an issue in the race to world first, where some people were
Hmm.
actually benched for their raid because their character just got poor drops with the new shards.
Yeah.
And, even though those shards might be a 0.5% damage increase, if you're competing for world first, that's can be the difference between a kill and not a
Yeah.
kill. I know I was watching. I personally watched that one of the polls that limit complexity limit did, where they got Sylvanas to, I believe it was 45.4% or something, when
Yeah.
the boss goes down at 45%. My numbers might be off, but that's
No,
what my memory
I
says.
think you're about right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just it's like, man, like if one person in that raid had an additional shard or something, I mean, that could have been a completely different outcome.
Yeah.
So that, it can be a bit frustrating. And
Hmm.
anytime you're dealing with competition, if there's not this perceived level of fairness, I mean, that's where players, I think, get really, really frustrated. Um,
But you got to imagine that years back when they had actual raid tier gear and you had the set bonuses, people had to get benched if they were missing like their 4 set or something like that, or their 2 set. If they just had the crappiest of drop rates, I'm sure people got benched then just the same. And
yeah,
those had way more effect than a 0.5% DPS increase.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but at the same time too, like loot systems are different. The player power was concentrated primarily with gear and not with all these other things. So I mean, this is just a general problem with
Hmm.
competition and fairness. I guess throughout time, it's just all the recent expansions have kind of added new systems, added new ways of falling behind, which I think if you're wanting to be competitive in the game, it can be really frustrating to just feel like, oh, I arbitrarily fell behind because I didn't get this, or
Yeah.
maybe my covenant got nerfed in this content patch, and that now I have to regrind this renown, and it's can
Yeah.
feel a bit frustrating for sure.
Well, I think that's definitely the feel there, right? Like if you have this character that you've worked on, it has a whole bunch of power that you've built up through gear drop stats, renown, borrowed power, and this went conduit, soul binds, all that stuff, right? You have this really powerful character, and then you turn around and pick up an alt, and they feel weak,
Yeah,
right? And really, that's what it comes down to: is you go from this feeling powerful and you log off onto another character, and okay, so it's a different character. You're supposed to be able to, it's supposed to be a different journey. It's supposed to be a different story, but at the same time, it still feels weak. And I think that's really the part that I don't think Blizzard can ever really fix, if they're always going to maintain a idea where gear matters. You have this gear progression where you start, you start weak and you move up through, because they have the depreciating stats as you increase levels, and then you have to get more stats to get back that power, the feeling of power in that. And so long as they keep doing that, you're always going to have that, where as you switch around from character to character, you're going to have that weak feeling, and you're going to inherently walk into a room and there's going to be somebody more powerful than you. I find it very rare do I walk into any part of World of Warcraft and feel if I'm at the same level as somebody else, sometimes I feel more powerful than somebody, but there's always somebody that's more powerful than me, and I always feel that. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of the way it may actually makes the game kind of that RPG that it's supposed to be, right? Where you feel that. So
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult, because I think the classic view of the RPG genre, like, the RPGs and their essences are something that, right, you spend a lot of time investing in, and there's this clear development of your character. But if we just think about, like, the modern audience and, modern games, they just throw you into the action instantly. Like, there's a play button for every competitive game. And so I think that's kind of where the tension is there's this tendency to preserve, and there's this desire to preserve the RPG element of the MMORPG, but at the same time, it's like, wow, it would be nice if once in a while we could just press the
well,
play button.
but now I have to counter though but that's not RPGs. Those aren't MMORPGs that are doing that. Like, I haven't heard anybody say that they hopped onto the new one, Final Fantasy 14. I haven't heard anybody say that they hopped into Final Fantasy 14 and at the go were toe to toe. You know,
Yeah, I think
they still have to level.
I,
They still have the gear. They still have to grind. It's not as much of a grind, but they
yeah,
still have to grind, right?
yeah,
BDO is supposed to be horrendous for grinding. Like, if you're not on it every day, spending hours, you're not relevant. What are the other ones? I'm just trying to think now. I'm
I,
so out of date on all the RPGs.
I have no idea. I don't know if, like, Path of Exile is considered an RPG or
I'm not
not.
sure. Yeah. But I mean, like, so basically, when it comes down to it, I think anything that is an RPG will always have that need to move through the story, and your character is the story moving through the world.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And it'd be nice, though, if you could separate that from the competitive side of the game. If you could detach that for a moment. At least that'd be my
Oh, so
my
now you're talking about the paid TR.
yeah, I
Minimum,
mean,
but
jeez, yeah.
that's basically what you're
It's
talking
that
about, right?
Yes, I mean, in my perfect world, my perfect World of Warcraft for PvP is literally it's a separate realm. It's in the realm list. It can queue into people who are on the normal realms, but there's just, like, create a character. It's instantly max level, has all the renown, whatever. You just go up to a vendor, buy the gear you want, and then you press Q. That is my idea of a perfect World of Warcraft. But obviously that's probably uh, not a reality that we're gonna experience anytime soon. But that's my ideal World of Warcraft for sure.
Well, so I can see this is where I'm torn. I enjoy the story. I enjoy the questing. I like
Yeah.
going through all that. I don't like doing it 12 times. I don't like
Yeah.
doing it all that. I don't enjoy the idea of, at 9.2 to finally get around to my fifth alt, and then having to go through 10 levels of grinding, and then all the renown grinding and get through the intro stories and all that, and skipping through all that stuff like that. By that time, it's just bleh. So I guess I would love to be able to hop into a tournament realm where I have a max level character with current max level renown, just like they just basically what they have for the TR, and be able to queue up with some friends or some people and make new friends and just play. And I think that'd be awesome, because for the times that I don't have for the moments when I don't have the time to grind and do all the grinding, and I just want to queue and have some fun, that'd be great. I think putting myself as the point of view as a dev, my first fear would be if I offered that to the player base, that it would emaciate the queues. If I put a place over here where everybody could queue, what happens to the live ladder and the queuing system in the real game?
Yeah, so again, in my world, you could queue into the normal. The tournament realm would just be like Tichondrius. Like it would just be its own realm, and it could queue into the other servers. So if you want to be competitive, if all you care about is competition, you probably roll on the tournament realm because you're going to have access to all this gear instantly. But if you want to go through the whole storyline, if you want that experiential part of playing the game, you can do that as well. And then you can queue into people who are on the tournament realm. I think that would be, again, the most sensible solution. And I just think it would be a blast, because I love playing alts. Like I've always loved playing other classes.
Yep.
But it's like, man, if I want to play an alt now, I have to do a million things before I can actually play it's like that South Park episode, and after they defeat the guy who's been killing everyone in World of Warcraft, they're like, well, what do we do now? And Cartman's like, oh, finally we can play the game.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it feels like to grind renown. It's like, finally I can play the game.
Yeah. I'm no longer just killing a bunch of boars.
That's right.
There's a good point in chat is asking about war games, because technically if you queue up a war game and you put it in tournament mode, everybody's supposed to get evened out, right? So because all the gear and everything's supposed to scale, isn't it? So I thought you could do that if there was an easy way to just queue into a tournament realm, or not a tournament, into a war game. But I think in that you have to be able to, it's not just queuing in, you have to set it up, you have to make sure the other person's aware, both teams are ready, queue the war game, all that stuff, right? It's not as simple as just push a button and you queue into the next whatever. So
Yeah, I like the buttons. I like the queue button.
Well, and I guess that's it, because they had that for a bit for war games where you could just push a button, but then they removed it again, so now you have to do command line, or you have to use an add-on to do it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, I don't know why they took that away. It was nice that they had it built into the interface, and then they made it put it back to command line. So,
yeah, who knows?
Well, who knows? So, speaking of your angst about having to level an alt, why don't we talk about some of the 9.1.5 updates? What they previewed as of what they're going to put into the game.
Yeah.
Why don't we? So first and foremost, they're going to add in where if you get to maxed renown, you can switch covenants without penalty. So,
yeah, who knows exactly what that means? And if you can keep your renown between the covenants, that would be perfect. Like if it's basically like a talent in your spell book where you can just swap between covenants with just a single click and there's no penalty whatsoever, I like that. But if there's any sort of renown that you have to grind once you swap, I don't know if I'm as keen to that. So I just, I'd prefer the instant customization, just being able to select a covenant.
Yeah. So let me read this. I'll read exactly what it says, and then we'll kind of dissect that a little bit. So, players who reach max renown for their covenant will be able to freely switch among any of the 4 covenants without cooldown or restriction. Cosmetic rewards, including pets mounts that have been earned from that covenant, will thereafter be available regardless of the membership in a different one. Covenant switching and the use of cosmetic rewards will also apply to any alternate characters once the renown threshold is reached on one character. Conduit energy is being removed, and conduits will be freely swappable without any restrictions. And completing a Covenant campaign on one character will allow alternate characters the ability to skip that same Covenant campaign, earning the renown and a third Soulbind unlock immediately without needing to replay the full narrative arc. So, to me, that let's say you're max Necrolord and you decide to switch to Night Fae.
Yeah.
The way I'm understanding, and this is kind of like from the way other people are describing it, the assumption is that if you go back to Necrolord, you're still gonna. So let's say you're like, I don't know, 60 or whatever. I think max is gonna be 80, right? So if you're 80,
Yeah.
then you switch over to Night Fae and you decide you want to switch back to Necrolord, you're going to be 80 renowned over at Necrolord. That, as far as I know, that doesn't go away. Now the question is when you go back, if you go over to Night Fae and you're, let's say, renown 14, are you going to have to grind out till you're 80 again on Night Fae?
Yes.
I'm guessing yes. I don't think that's going to be a freebie.
So it's kind of be like reputations almost. Like you maintain the rep between the covenants, but you have to grind it in the first play. Like for each one, you have to grind it.
So,
yeah.
The upside though is that, and this is the big one I think, which was affecting a lot of people that were, the best covenant, the real min-maxers. The best one was like, I don't know, let's say Necrolord for PvP, but Kyrian for PvE, right?
Yeah.
That's where it really affected people, and I think that's where it's really still gonna shine. Did you find you had to switch around with a bunch, or was this anything that really affected you in anything you did?
No, I only do arena. So for me,
Okay.
it's actually quite nice. I'm actually quite spoiled as a druid because I can be Necrolord for any spec. Like it's good for all 4 of my specs even.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it's not optimal for all 4, but it's really good. It's optimal for Resto, and so I have no problem. And some other classes though, like I know there's big problems with
Yeah.
each spec having its own you know optimal one, and that's might be different in PvE. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's who this change is specifically targeting.
Yeah, I think so too. Even if you're not switching covenants, there's some where it's like one Soulbind is BIS for raids, and another one is BIS for Mythic Plus, and another one is like that's a lot of conduit energy you're switching around every time you're swapping your Soulbinds and then the conduits and just
Right.
bleh.
Yeah.
So I think that's where this is really going to help a lot of people, is that they're going to be able to min max, and I'm assuming that this is actually affecting people. I could be wrong. This could be like the top 1% that's going to be like, yeah, and meanwhile everybody else is like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like they're still not going to switch anything, right? So
Yeah.
well, we'll see.
But options are good. I like options.
I think where this really shines is where a lot of people were saying it allows for experimentation, and you're not restricted by conduit energy or anything else, right? Even on PTR and that, there's people that wanted to play around and they couldn't because they ran out of conduit energy. They had to wait for a few days before they tried the next whatever. So
yeah.
No. Yeah.
I think these are good changes. Good changes.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
All right. I want to bring. There was another podcast I was on. We're doing a round table, and I think I was the only person that out of the 4 that picked my. Because I was running Necrolord Frost DK at the time. I was the only one that picked the Covenant based on min-maxing, based on what was theoretically the best. Everybody else in the podcast just picked what they wanted based on the story or the feeling of that Covenant,
Yeah.
how it felt to their character or how it felt to them personally. Nobody, and like some of them, it was like they're like, yeah, this is the worst according to the Sims. This is the worst Covenant, but I'm okay with that.
It,
So
it's
I've
interesting. Like, what it reminds me of is it's like there's this giant mass of players that you don't ever see or like interact with. Like we have our own little echo chambers in the PvP community
mhm,
where we pretty much only ever see PvPers. We only ever see people with opinions about PvP. And so it's like, it's it's for me sometimes I need to remember that there's this entire player base who has a completely different set of goals than I do when it comes to playing the game.
yeah,
Um, and I don't think many people tend to forget that, and sometimes it can create a bit of hostility between these two these two factions of the game.
yeah,
But it's always incredible to me to just remember that there's this entire group of people who don't care about min maxing or don't care about being the
yep,
best or have their character being strong.
yeah. There's a group of people that are more than happy to just run normal and be 6 out of 10 normal at the end of the expansion because they're running around with friends and that's okay.
Yeah,
I mean, there are some people where they just run, the mythic dungeons kind of doesn't really affect them because I think they're still running heroics and they're just okay with that.
yeah,
It never ceases to amaze me. Every once in a while, I'll go back to some of my old characters and I'll be like even now, I have one that sits in Borealis, and there's still a
yeah,
bunch of people running around Borealis at
yeah,
level 50. Like, I'm guessing they never bought Shadowlands. Like, they just haven't got the money for it yet. But they're still happy. They're just running around. They're still doing Borealis stuff. They're still doing BFA things, and that's fine for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that they're still playing the game the way they want to play the game. But I think it strengthens that same point you just brought up, is that there's a whole group of people that, they aren't scrambling to be on the cutting edge. They aren't scrambling to be a certain rating on some to have some number on some ladder somewhere to say that they're
yeah.
whatever.
It's almost kind of like the urban and rural divide. You have the PvEers, the PvPers,
Yeah,
the competitive side living in the cities, and then you have this whole suburban and rural landscape where there's all these other people you never see. You're like, oh wow, there's a lot of
yeah,
people here on
yeah.
this planet.
Not everybody's trying to not everybody's trying to be the multi-million billionaire on Wall Street or whatever, right?
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So some people are more than happy to just be in suburbia working at 7-Eleven. So
That's
it's
on a farm or doing whatever. Yeah.
yeah, totally. All right, let's go through some of the other stuff. So there's obviously some other PvE things, new customization, new art assets for the Night Forged and the Light Forged Draenei, which is looks pretty sweet,
Yep.
if I may say so.
Yep.
Legion time walking. Ooh, I can't believe it's that far away that they're bringing in Legion time walking. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, it fits. It's been enough. It's 2 X-Packs away. Sure. Like, it's time for them to bring in the next time walking, and that happens to be Legion. It just blows me away that it's been that long already. It
Yeah.
just seems like the other day that I was running around playing Legion.
Yeah, it's weird how like these expansions distort our perception of time. Like I just feel like Cataclysm was yesterday, but that was 10 years ago. Like
Oh
that's
my
crazy.
God. Now I feel old. Thanks. The neat one here is with the Legion time walking, they're going to bring in the Mythic Plus dungeons, because that's when Mythic Plus came in. So you're going to have Mythic Plus
Mm.
time walking.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yes, that's going to be really interesting. I'm not sure. I'm wondering how that's going to be, because if Mythic Plus is supposed to be that higher eye level, that higher gear, but the harder, I wonder what that's going to look like in time walking. Like, is it going to actually bring, well, case in point, like you said, like, so the time walking raids actually brings in some fairly good eye level gear, right? So what's
Yeah.
Mythic Plus time walking going to do? Is it going to be 232? Is it going to be 240? Or is it going to be slightly less? Is it going to be like, 220?
Yeah, that's an interesting problem. I didn't even consider that. But I mean, hopefully, ideally, since it's harder content, it should be better gear, on paper. Should.
And I think my other question is corruption and what's that going to look like again?
Corruption wasn't. Oh, yeah. If they ever do BFA, oh yeah. What?
Yeah,
What
I
did
know
they?
this is Legion, not BFA, but I'm like just thinking ahead. Yeah, if they bring in
Yeah,
corruption, what's that? Like,
man, so many gear systems throughout time. It's hard to remember where they came from and where they went. It's like, whoa, that was a thing. I
yeah,
remember that.
yeah. It's yeah. Oh yeah, because was it Legion that had that PVE tank trinket that then they had to bring in the Maledict to counter? Wasn't that
Maledict,
Legion?
I believe, was BFA.
Or
Jeez.
was that BFA?
Oh
Oh my
man.
god. Now it's all crossing. Okay. I'm
Who
crossing the
knows?
lines. All right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Time is a flat circle. Who knows?
No, it's a Heliax. All right, so let's see what else. They are Island Expeditions. You can now do solo queue for Island Expeditions. Huzzah. For anybody that still wants to do those.
Sure thing.
I mean, I guess if there's a whole bunch, because that was really good for transmog and pets and like collectibles and that. So I could see
Yeah.
that if you had some really bad drop rates and you want to go back and farm it, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a really awesome one. Skippable Maw introduction. Thank you. Yes, please. I'll take 5 of those right now. Thank you very much. Yeah, so apparently if you have already completed the introduction of the Maw on one character, you can now skip it on all your alts.
That's nice. I personally like the Maw intro. Maybe I'm a hipster here, but I kind of like it. You get a lot of experience from it. I don't mind it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you want to skip it, fine. I won't be skipping it. I'm just gonna announce that.
Okay.
But
I agree. There's some great experience there. It's, I guess if let's say you have a lower item level character, like a really green character, it's not the easiest. And doing it a few times, it gets really tiresome doing it again.
I see. Yeah, I see that. I see that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, so for some of the allied races, you had to go and do some dungeon requirements. So they're removing those. So apparently, that isn't required anymore to unlock your allied races. Case in point was the Culturon humans, the Mechanomes, and the Dark Iron Dwarves. I'm guessing that was probably because some of the queues for those dungeons were pretty vacant, I'm guessing. So
Probably, yeah.
Rather than have that as an obstacle, just get rid of it. It made sense at the time, but now it really isn't required. So off it goes.
Yeah.
Remote turn-in for Anima. You no longer
Thank goodness.
Oh, you're okay with the Maw introduction, but okay, whatever. All right. I get you though. I personally, a few times where it's like, oh, my bags are full. What are my bags full of? Oh, it's a whole bunch of Anima. Okay, now I have to go all the way back to my Covenant, turn it in to my Sanctum, and then go back out to whatever I was doing, especially out in Korthia.
Yeah, like Halloween is coming up. It's like, you leave your house with empty bags, and then suddenly 20 minutes later your bags are completely full with all just candy, this stuff in your bags, and It's like, wow, I had bag space 20 minutes ago. What happened? Oh, you got all these little things from Corthia, the animal rewards. I want to put it somewhere. So I
Yeah.
like that one.
I think that's really awesome. And actually, I would skip ahead. This was a hot fix they just put in. Your anima now caps at 200,000 instead of 30. So
Nice.
yes, not infinite, but definitely much higher. This isn't in the notes or anything. I saw this where there was a tweet earlier from Hazakostas saying that they're also looking at a way to be able to transfer anima. So again, kind of going with the whole swapping between covenants, there's going to be a way for you to transfer your anima from one covenant to another.
Nice.
So yeah. Let's hear what else. Hey, how much are you into trying to share your transmog with other people?
I think it's cool. I personally, I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a cool guy over here, but I'm not really that excited about this.
No.
But no, I don't know. Transmog to me, I don't really care to like. Here's the thing. I have the equivalent of like a classic sports car. That's how I view my transmog. Like I don't ever. I maybe I have two really cool cars that I drive. I have two
Mm-hmm.
really cool transmogs that I use. I don't really ever plan on changing them.
Okay.
That because it's cool stuff you can't get in anymore. I'm like, I like this stuff. So
All right.
to me, it's like, whatever, no big deal for me. But it's cool, for the people who are into that sort of thing, I completely think that's a good change.
But here's the thing. So let's say I run across you in Oribos, and I'm like, "Yo, Big, that's an amazing transmog. What is that?" And you can just go into your dressing room and share the link and show me what it is. And I can
That's
go,
true.
"Oh my goodness, that's amazing! You have the whatever piece of unachievable gear anymore. How'd you get that?" And you'd be like, "I've been playing since vanilla, yo."
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'm just too much of an elitist. I'm like, you don't deserve to know where I got this.
Yeah, kind of like your. Where'd you get those glasses, anyways? Those in your picture there, the one we're
Yeah,
using for this stream. Where'd you get those sunglasses, buddy? Those are.
I had to beat up a drug dealer to get them.
Okay, then I wasn't expecting that as an answer. All right, so hopefully, if you want to share your transmog and let them know that you got your helm from beating up a drug dealer, then you can link that and share it with people in 9.1.5. On that, let's hear. Let's hear what else. What else is going? Oh, my, I lost track of thought here. Alt leveling improvements. So heirloom ranking up. They're also
Nice.
going to give some better renown gains. So you'll be able to catch up even faster, which is awesome. Which actually kind of goes back to, I wonder how that's going to work if that also works for your max level character. So if you switch out your renown, or you switch out your conduits, switch out your covenants, and now you're back to a lower renown if you can use that to catch up, or if that's only with, the up to level 59 or something like that.
Yeah. Who knows? Also, I saw something that you can level in Torghast or something. I don't know if I read that incorrectly, but it
Yeah.
sounded like you could level in Torghast.
So the Threads of Fate is also going to include the addition of Torghast as an option. So yeah,
Wow.
so that tells me that if you run into Torghast with a group of people, you're going to gain I'm not going to swear, a whole bunch of experience there probably, and that's going to be amazing. That's going to be. I think that will definitely hit what Torghast was meant to be. Can you imagine taking a group of four other friends and with some alts and running into Torghast and just speed just repeatedly running a wing?
I have a feeling I'm looking into a crystal ball right now. I'm seeing the future.
Okay.
I can predict that that's going to be an absolutely broken way to level. Like there's
Heck
going to be
yeah.
something that's overtuned with that, and
Heck
it'll probably be nerfed in like a few days. So if you want to level in Torghast, do that quick because anything that allows you to level easily. Whenever they introduce something that you get sort of a new way to level your character, it's always really really busted. It
Oh yeah.
seems.
Yeah,
So
I can't wait.
hop on that.
Well, we'll see. We'll have to maybe me and you will have to hop into 915 on the PTR there and give it a run, see what it feels like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Let's hear what else. BFA, the legacy loot rules are in effect, so now you can go and run any of those dungeons and raids for your missing transmog pieces. That's pretty awesome.
Nice.
And the last but not least is the slightly out of order of what they have it listed here, but I kept it for last, is the lower eye level PvP gear. So,
Okay.
yeah, do you want to go? You want to explain this? I'm a little scratching my head on this one still.
Yeah, so the issue was this season's honor gear, I believe maxes at 229 item level in instance PvP, which is only 3 item level higher than last season's gear. So the disparity between full honor gear and full conquest gear, I believe is, I'm just doing some quick math, 23 item levels. I believe 23 item levels, which is kind of a problem. It might be more than that. It's maybe
Yeah, I
between
think it's
20 and
more.
30.
Yeah.
So if you spend the time getting full honor gear, you're 20 to 30% weaker just on gear alone compared to someone who has full conquest gear. And honor gear takes a long time to grind.
Oh
It's
God, does
not
it
and
ever?
that's not an easy grind.
No.
So
And you need
hopefully,
renown to max it out to max level too.
yeah, you need 57, I believe, renown to max it to rank 7.
50,
So
59, I thought.
something in high
Yeah.
50s.
Yeah.
So
Right.
hopefully they're bumping the instanced PvP item level of all the honor gear. Ideally, they would do it by like 10. Like instead of it being 229 for the max ranked honor gear, if it was like 239, that would be. But then it
Mhm.
would be better than some of the conquest gear. So I don't know. It's hard. Who knows how they're doing this? But
Yeah. So I think that's the problem. So how they said it exactly was lower item level PvP gear will now scale to a higher item level in PvP situations than before. This should reduce the power level gap so that new characters can feel that they are able to compete in battlegrounds and arenas more readily. This change
yeah,
will not affect higher item level PvP gear. Now, that says nothing about honor or conquest. That just says PvP gear. So,
ah,
yeah, I think a lot of people assumed that the lower item level stuff was honor gear and the higher item level stuff was conquest gear, and that would make sense because it would be an easy fix. But
yeah,
are they actually changing the item level of the gear, or is it just a scaling? Because right now it's just what it adds plus 13 item level per item, right?
yeah.
So are they just going to add like a plus 14 then, or a plus 16? And if that's the case, then if you
Mm,
have rank 1, so if you have a brand new character that just level 60 and you ran a bunch of, I don't know, let's say you leveled up with a bunch of battlegrounds or whatever, so you have a bunch of honor gear, or you have a bunch of honor points, so you buy a bunch of gear and you rank it up so you're maybe like rank 2 by the time you spend that all in
yeah,
ranking everything. And you're held back by renowned anyway, so you probably won't be able to get higher than rank 3 anyway. So if you have let's say rank 3 honor gear, and then they add let's say 13, they add 16 to it, the power level gap between that and somebody with, I don't know, 1800 CR conquest gear that's max ranked, you're still going to get steamrolled. Am I wrong?
yeah. No, you're not. Like, I think that the item level difference would be like 30 or 40 at that point, which would be like
I
30 to
think it'd be more
40%.
like 50. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, something. So,
So, like, okay, so it's maybe it's 10% better, like, yeah, so it's, instead of a 60% gap, it's a 50% gap, and understanding that's going to be like the one or two people in that random BG that you're running, or the PvP situation. Like,
here,
should
here,
be running into somebody with full conquest gear at, I don't know, 1500 CR, you shouldn't. But people do that all the time.
Here's I think what this has illustrated is that having so many tiers of upgrades in PvP gear is kind of creates a lot of issues.
It
Like,
does.
yeah, I mean, if there were 3 upgrade tiers, okay, fine. Or if there's just if you could only upgrade gear once, like that would be
Hmm.
better. But since there's 7 for honor gear and what 5 for conquest gear, that's 12 ranks of gear. I mean that, yeah, hats off whoever's doing the math for this stuff. Like they have to figure out
Yeah.
what is the balance to strike here, because man, having all these gear upgrades, it might seem to
Like,
be what's causing this problem.
I'll be honest, to me, it makes no sense to grind a whole bunch of honor gear and then have to grind conquest gear. Like, if you're gonna do that, I'd say maybe get to rank 3 or whatever, but then just hop into anything that's getting, like, start farming your conquest whatever way you can, and just farm all the conquest gear, because all the honor you're spending on your honor gear, you need to use to rank up your conquest gear anyways.
Yeah.
So why, like, just go for the conquest gear and rank it up as high as you can with your honor, and
Jeez.
at least then you only have like maybe 3 rank difference between, because maybe, because obviously if you're getting smacked that hard, you're not going to be climbing 1800 right away. It's just a crappy grind is all it is. But just grind it out, and then you can actually maybe go toe to toe, because you're only looking at a 10 to 15% power difference instead of a 50% power difference.
It's this conversation we're having is so funny to me, because it's like, it's one of those situations where you have to take a step back from the system and be like, wait a second, this is kind of messed up. like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
hold on, why am I spending honor to upgrade my conquest gear? Like, why is there this decision that has to be made when you're, you know, progressing your character? It sort of feels like you're stuck between 2 bad decisions sometimes.
Well, that's just like talent sometimes.
Yeah. But for gear, it's like that should be the last of your least of your concerns. When you're starting fresh. But it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I have 4K honor. Do I use this to upgrade my honor piece, or do I save conquest? And what if I get something from the vault? It's like there's all these weird. It's the decisions you have to make are kind of complicated.
Mm-hmm. And well, but that's part of the lottery. There's always that what if. Like, oh, do I save it? Do I try? Do I buy it and then run it? And then you have the buyer's remorse. That, like, we just had that, right? Where you had
Yes.
the weapon that you bought dropped. It's like, ah, crap.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, it's good to save some money there.
Yeah, there's always a buyer, but that's just buyer's remorse. Like, you don't have a crystal ball. You can't look ahead on that. But I think for honor gear, I think there's a bit of a pitfall there in thinking that you have to max out all you buy honor gear, rank it up all the way max, and then switch over to the arena conquest gear, or
Mhm.
don't, and then just run around with honor gear. But I think really the intent there was that either you just do unrated PvP and roll around, and no different than if you go and do dungeons, you just do heroic dungeons. You don't expect to roll just heroics and walk away with mythic raid gear. You shouldn't,
Right.
right? And I think they have that same idea in the PvP gearing, at least in that way. But since you can earn conquest and you can purchase, you can earn conquest from doing unrated PvP and then purchase conquest gear, there's a certain point there, I think, where it makes no sense to keep spending honor points on honor gear when you can just turn around and just grind it out. Just get the conquest stuff, because otherwise you're always going to feel that gear disparity, unless I'm wrong. I obviously, like, sorry, I made some assumptions on the numbers. It could possibly be that they add some weird number rank, some, on the lowest item stuff, you get like a plus 25, and on the next rank, all the way to max rank, where you get like plus 16. Like, maybe they'll do that. I don't know, because we don't know.
Who
There's just assumptions that we're making on numbers, right? But
Yeah.
I guess that could work. Can you imagine if you bought the first rank, the first level of honor gear, and it was like plus 50 item level?
That'd be nice.
Then you could really go toe to toe.
That's right. That's what I want.
Yeah. I will point out, so there were some comments I made on Twitter, and there was a great discussion about it. And there was one person that really pointed out is how they're not happy with this because they like to be able to have gear and be able to stomp people. And this is their barrier, is that by doing this and making the scale, the disparity less, and giving the lower item level person a chance, is actually a put off for the person, and that they were pissed off about that.
Well, I mean, it's push and pull. I mean, you have plenty of other people on the other side who are like, "Oh no, I don't want to be squashed like a bug every time
Exactly.
I go in." So it's it's balance, I guess.
It goes both
But I
ways.
mean, yeah, and there still will be, I mean, gear disparities no matter what. So
Oh
this
yeah.
person's still going to be able to stomp people, but maybe there'll just be a little bit less people to stomp.
Yeah. Well, it'll take them 3 globals instead of 1.
That's right.
Unless they're playing Windwalker.
Right.
All right. So that was it pretty much on the on the preview notes, I think. Let's hear what else. Oh, one other item. This was an amazing on the forums where they put up the developer update on the forums, and there was a couple lines in here that really lined up. So this was done by Cavix. Link again, show notes. I'm sure pretty much anybody listening has seen this as well, where it talked about the upcoming PTR, what it was going to look like, the fact that it's a half, it's a 0.5, so it's going to be a lot of quality of life and everything. There was a couple of really neat lines here, and one, the paragraph where it starts with conduit energy, however, is a different story. The system simply has not played out the way we had hoped it would. We should have heeded the community feedback and taken a different direction a year ago. A majority of players largely ignored the system and are unaffected by it, while the minority who want to engage in multiple content types competitively feel constrained by it. Overall, that adds up to a negative experience. Conduit energy isn't really making the game better in any appreciable way, so we're removing the system entirely. So, so I thought that was really interesting. I just want to bring this back to that conversation we're having earlier about whether listening to the community or not. So I have to ask, in your experience, have you heard them use words like that before, where basically they're like, "Oh, yeah, we really should have actually listened to you guys a year ago"? And do you think that this is a how do you think this pertains to the future of what we'll see from Blizzard and their response to our feedback? What do you think, Big?
I don't, my memory, I don't know if there was a time when they kind of had this sort of messaging. We have had like some sort of insight into developer changes in the past, but they never seemed to be that like emotionally charged, just kind of just like more neutral, more robotic. Like we are changing this because it's a
Yeah.
very there's never
Yeah.
been as much emotion tied into something like
That
this.
broken thing we put in didn't really work out the way we thought it was, so we're changing this to make it better.
Yeah,
That's usually
but
what it was kind of was. But yeah.
so the thing that Blizzard in my eyes is struggle with, and I think a lot of people have this sentiment, especially competitive people, is it's really hard to see inside of the sort of black box of development that happens with the game. It's hard to know why changes are being made, who the changes are targeting,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to kind of get that that feeling of feedback if you're a competitive player. Like there's things that we complain about, we argue about all the time on Twitter, social media, the forums, whatever it be, and it's hard to know like where that is going. It's like
Mhm.
we're shouting it into a well, and hopefully someone's down there to like hear what we said. We never know where the messages go, and I think that's can be a bit frustrating. So
Yeah.
hopefully this opens up like some more sort of direct communication uh with the community. I know, Halinka had that interview with Venruki a few months ago.
Yeah.
If this is sort of any indication that there might be more things like that too, that's somewhat optimistic. But I think that's one area that Blizzard always can improve on is just how it communicates to its community,
Mhm.
especially especially the competitive community. I think that's kind of been a bit of a sore spot for anyone who competes in PvP. Is like, well, I complain, but does anyone actually listen?
Mhm. That's a good point because yeah, I mean, if you look on the forums, there's a variety of responses everywhere from almost a full written out thesis to a this sucks. I'm change it or I'm quitting Blizz. Uh,
Yeah.
so are they reading all the feedback? Uh, one would hope. I heard. Sure, what I was. I don't think this. I can't remember if this is when we were talking to Chris Kaliki or if that was when he from somewhere else. But I heard where it's like nobody was mandated at the developer state. The developers or the designers are not mandated to actually go and seek out the feedback. Like
Ah.
it's not in their job description. They don't have to. They just kind of do it if they care. But then obviously then it's like reading YouTube comments, right? Like you can read them, but you don't have to agree with them all, right? It's kind of because some of them are just horrendous. Um, and then if you're reading somebody else's video YouTube comments, like how much do you put into that, right? Uh,
Yeah, here's what I think. I think
sure.
the developers need to seem more human. I think
Mm-hmm.
because right now they're kind of like this, this sort of obscure, like in the clouds almost, like council that you don't really, you've heard of them,
Yeah.
you know they must exist, right? But
Mm-hmm.
never do they really reveal their human faces. And I think kind of having a more human focused approach to like this sort of thing would be nice. Like even okay, I know people like to meme about Mark Zuckerberg, not being an actual human, being a lizard or something. But even like Mark Zuckerberg, he I know he's had like multiple addresses. Like he's testified before, the Congress of the United States.
Yeah.
So like he has shown his human face despite being a billionaire, leader of a tech company. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I think that sort of,
But you can tweet at
you,
him and he might actually respond. Same with Elon Musk. You could tweet to him and he will actually respond to you if he
yeah, yeah,
finds the
yeah.
time.
Yeah, it's like, and I know the developers, they, there's probably a good reason why they wouldn't want to tweet at some people, and some people are probably mean, but man, like more of a human face to Blizzard and its development team, I think would go a long way, at least
So
for building trust.
I I agree with you. Um, but my response to that is that if we want as a community for a more human face from the developers of the game we love, the community has to do a better job of not being shitheads
Yeah, yeah,
because it's a
that's
two-way street.
unfortunately, yeah, that's just it's a good ask, and I agree, but I think that's an impossible reality. Like there are always going to be annoying idiots who don't think of things in this critical lens. So it's
Hmm.
just like, man, like we just had. I think that just comes with the territory of being a game designer, and I agree. But I agree, like people
Yeah,
need to be better. Uh,
but
you know,
so that's the thing though. Then it comes down to is they don't have to, right? Like,
yeah,
they don't have to accept that, and so therefore they don't have to be present in that space. If we want if we want humans on that other side, then people on this side have to be human as well, and not hide behind the obscurity of internet.
Yeah.
So
I agree,
I
but that's a very optimistic, an optimistic
and I get that.
goal.
It's just as optimistic as having that humanity come from the developers, which would be it would be amazing. I'd love it.
Yeah.
But again, leaning back on the conversation we had with Chris Kaliki, he was even saying as a developer where he would make changes to a class and then he would get yelled at. Well, not yelled at, but he'd get friends and workmates come over and be like, "Yo, dude, why'd you nerf my class?" Right? It's
Yeah.
well, it was broken. Like that shouldn't have existed that way. Well, yeah, but I was awesome. Like,
I was actually blocked by Halink on Twitter a few years ago. This is like back in 2014. I was 21 years old. I thought I was a hot shot. I was like, I'm good at PvP.
Yep.
These devs don't know anything. And so there's a spell in the game called Saving Grace. It was a priest spell. It was an instant cast heal. It did a
Okay.
ton of healing.
Yeah.
But it had a penalty where if you used it multiple times, you'd do less and less healing. Anyway,
Yeah.
I tweeted at Chris Kalekian and Brian Halinka, and I quote, the tweet was, "Which one of you idiots designed Saving Grace?" And then I got instantly blocked, which fair. Like I should have been blocked for that. But it's like, yeah, man, like I totally get that perspective of the devs. Like you just have these idiots like Bigmoran over here, the 21 years old, just like, which one of you idiots did your job today, you bastards?
Yeah. Beep. I don't need to listen to you anymore.
Right.
So, but and that goes back to we're seeing the same things with the writers on the lore team and some of the stuff coming from the community to that, like telling people to go kill themselves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I think until that changes, I which is I guess a pipe dream. I would say having humanity come from the devs is a pipe dream as well. And it's unfortunate. It really is. Because I agree. I would love to be able to have a human conversation, and I've had human conversations. I've been at BlizzCon and talked to some of the devs and had a human conversation with them, and it's absolutely great. I know at they used to have the PvP summits, and I believe on the esports side, I recall something about they had a summit where they invited a whole bunch of the pro players to try to have a conversation. I'm assuming that's more on the esports side, not necessarily on game mechanics or class design or anything like that. But the understanding I have was of the people that were invited, a small fraction actually showed up to have a to have a conversation.
Well, they had the PvP summit back in oh god, was it Cataclysm? Yes, it was.
Yeah,
I think it was Cataclysm. Yeah, I mean, there's that one.
Well.
Yeah, but in Canada they had the in-person one, and there's that famous picture with all like the rank one, like Venruki's there, Vanguard's there, like everyone's just standing in front of the Blizzard sculpture. There's also for a while a secret forum where certain people, certain high-rated players and high-ranking PvEers could participate in this exclusive forum that was a direct line of contact with at least presumptually some developers. But I don't know what the story. There's something happened there with I don't know. A lot of hearsay.
I'm guessing there was something similar we just talked about in social media where somebody went off the handle.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
I think, and somebody was just like, you know what? So I remember a screenshot of somebody talking about that, and I think part of it was that some people also probably got a little upset where they weren't invited in it. They felt that they should have been, maybe. And so it's just like, whatever. We won't stop. Rather than having special forums and that, we'll just, people can just put forums. And it makes sense. Like, why not just have open conversations to everybody? Because,
I would love to be in in a PvP summit. That would be so fun. I think that the challenge would be to be to invite the right sort of people.
Yeah.
Because, just because you're a good player doesn't necessarily mean you understand the game very well. And
Mm-hmm.
on the flip side, if just because you're a low rated player doesn't mean you don't understand the game very well. So it's like, there's sort of this spectrum of experience and game knowledge
Yeah.
and understanding of game systems that I think need to be carefully gauged before you ever do something like that. But I would personally, like, Brian Holinka, if you're listening, I would gladly be invited to a PV. I would pay for my own flight. Maybe not a hotel, but I'd pay for my own flight
Okay.
to go to Irvine.
You're not going to drive there with your car? No,
I'm terrified of driving in my car right now.
Fair enough. And I can understand what you're coming from. I think we've seen that already, where there's players that are like true and blue, a rogue main. Rogue is our class, and they will scream to high heaven about all the things that need to be fixed on a rogue, and everything else needs to be nerfed, right? Because the rogue has to be king.
Yeah.
So versus somebody else who's like, a mage main, and they'll do the same thing for mage. Like which one's right, which one's wrong, right? If the rogue's saying that the mage needs to be nerfed and the mage is saying that the rogue needs to be nerfed, then okay, we'll nerf you both. No, that's not what we meant. It's like, well,
not like that.
Yeah, so that's not what I meant. Well, that's what you said. Okay. I think. Shoot. All right. I want. All right. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna take time for this. I'm gonna get on the soapbox if that's okay for a second. Not that I haven't been up there for half the show already. So I want to bring this up. There's an interesting graphic. I think everybody's seen it. The Ian Hazzikostas with the Shadowlands, and it talks about the expansion cycle, and it goes, they announce the expansion and promise to listen to feedback, and then the next step is players give constructive feedback about core systems. Then the next one is they disagree and promise to balance it all perfectly down the line. Then the point 1 is adjust according to popular demand. Point 2 is start adjusting based on feedback initially provided in the alpha. Point 3 is fix the expansion and then move on to the next expansion. And I think this is pertinent to the conversation today that we're having, because there is an expansion that was announced. They did say how, in kind of a post-mortem, how there were some systems that we're going to listen to. They're going to listen to feedback better. They're going to be better at engaging with the community, all that stuff. And then boom, up onto the PTR goes the beta of the next expansion. A whole bunch of players rush into that. A few number actually run through everything and give a bunch of feedback on all the bugs they find and their ideas about certain systems. And then usually what happens is they go and the perception, they say, okay, and there's usually some little tweaks, but usually what comes out into the actual first launch of the expansion doesn't quite fix all the stuff that was brought up. Case in point in this one, during the beta and all the feedback that was brought back about the covenants and the issues with it, and the best they did was they did the conduit energy, but they basically said, no, you guys are wrong, we know what we're doing. That's the perception from the community, and a little bit from what they said, but basically perception of the community. I want to roll back and talk about, because I have a little bit of experience with project management, just with some of the stuff I do as a job, and there's some certain parts to project management. So what you do is when you design a project, there's some main constraints you have, which one is money, right, and 2 is time, right? You always have a start date and an end date, and I think. Before, I don't think a lot. I've noticed that project management has definitely been a bigger thing in the last few expansions, where things hit the expected end date. give or take, maybe adjusted slightly, but usually within a few weeks of that end date, they hit, and it's pretty hard hammered. Like, and you've seen it. You hear some of the devs talk about crunch time and everything because they're all pushing to try to reach that end date. And the other part of the triangle is scope, where if you're not going to make if you want to, as you make the triangle, is if you can't make time, then you pull away scope. If you want to keep scope, then you have to add more time. And with that, usually money always follows because time is money, friends. So if you've ever done anything, let's say building a project, let's say you're actually building something out of wood, and you have the design, you start building it, and then your significant other goes, oh, it'd be great is this, or you know what, that doesn't quite work with what we need. We need to actually change it so that the bathroom isn't over there, but the bathroom is over here, or the window isn't over there, the window's over here. Well, when you're already like, by the time we actually get an alpha or a beta, there's been a significant amount of project time already put into building what we're playing, that they can't actually just switch it over to the whims. It actually takes a lot of development time, and I think that's the part that we're missing, is the lag time between them getting our feedback and actually being able to enact it, because they have to get the money, they have to develop the project, they have to get through all that time. And this is where I'm closing it out, is I think that's really the part that the community doesn't see, is the community thinks that if they give feedback that there should be almost an immediate responsiveness to that. And I think listening to actually how Ian Hazzikostas responds, a lot of it's kind of like, yeah, that's not a bad idea, but how he responds is just a really nice way of saying, but we can't do that right now because we're too far into it. And I think it really takes like until a point 2 before they can they've been actually working on it since point 0, but it takes to the point 2 before they can actually make all the changes and do the programming to get into that and make enough adjustments to kind of make it work. But also at the point 2, I think they're already working on the next expansion. So they don't have they can't take a lot of money and develop into something that's already on the closeout. I think they're already on to the next, they're moving on to the next one. So this is my feeling. This is how I understand projects. And I think although the graphic speaks to how players feel, I do want to say I don't think it is actually correct, because I think it really should illustrate there's actually lag time there. And great question. Should they not communicate things like that? I would love for them to communicate things like that. I think that there's a certain amount of I'll say pride. Actually, there's a certain amount of pride in how they communicate, in that they never communicate in a way that they're wrong with things. I think, other than, again, like the most recent thing where they said, yeah, we were wrong, we should have listened to you guys a year ago, and we didn't.
Yeah.
I think, should they have listened to us and had it instituted in the point 1? I think so. I think they could have, that change of removing conduit energy, they could have. And I think that was just a bit of hubris. I think they were just really pushing for that. And I'll admit that part was hubris, but I think a lot of the times it's way more complicated. And the way project cycles work is that's really what I think, that's really what's happening. And they're not saying it. They're just not saying, you know what, great idea, but we can't fit that in right now because we have 100 other things we're doing right now. And we just can't be responsive to everything the community's throwing at us at every minute. So, all right.
Yeah.
I'm off my soapbox.
Okay. Yeah, I just, my contribution to what you just said. I do think though that there might be a bit of a sunk cost fallacy going on there with perhaps Blizzard and their project management. Where, okay, like, realistically, how much time would it take to remove conduit energy? It's I understand, like, bigger systems, sure.
Yeah.
Rebuilding a bigger system entirely from the ground up, that's going to take a lot of time. But there's smaller changes, which as someone who doesn't know anything about like software development or game development, it seems like these small changes could definitely, those are definitely feasible in a shorter amount of time than an entire patch cycle. Um,
Mhm.
so I think it just depends on the scale of the systems that players are wanting to change. For larger systems, I think it's understandable that players should be a bit more patient
Yeah.
because, as you said, these things are not created out of thin air. They require effort and time, and they're constrained by X, Y, and Z. But
Mhm.
smaller changes within those systems, I think, is where things can be a bit frustrating. It's like, well, dang, if only this small little thing like conduit energy was different, I wouldn't be as frustrated. And I think that's kind of where the frustration from the players arises. It's like, we're born into this new exciting system every expansion release, but it's like along the way there's these small little things that get on our nerves, and if only those things would change, I'm still fine with participating in the system, but these small little things,
Mhm.
if those could be better, I think players overall would be happier. So yeah, I think I understand, and I think people should understand game development as a project that's ongoing and has had a lot of time invested into it, but at the same time, yeah, there's small things that I think could be done.
Yeah. And I want to agree at the same time. I've tried, I own a home and I've tried to do small little things in my home and they never work out the way I want them to. Like it always turns into a much bigger project every time. So
Yeah.
like it was the other day I went to change out a tap and found out that the secondary valve or my isolation valve was actually shot. So I had to I had to make the decision of do I not do I not do that or do I had to isolate the water to my whole house. So then I was like, okay, so now do I replace that isolation valve to then replace the tap?
Yeah,
How,
there's a funny scene of Malcolm in the Middle, where Hal goes to fix something in his garage. He
yeah,
discovers one problem with like the drawer. He starts fixing that. He notices his hammer is broke. It's just one problem
exactly.
becomes 10, and so it's like, oh, what was I originally trying to fix here? But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Well, while we're trying to fix things, what what's the one thing you would change then? Thinking
with the
about
game,
uh, okay, so let's on the topic of 9.1.5 and it being an update. Uh,
yeah.
aside outside of the things they've already announced, or maybe there's something in the announcement that you would want something different. But what's one thing you would like them to be actually updating in 1.5? What's one thing you would change?
Uh, I'm gonna give my realistic answer. So I have my, the ambitious answer, which is to create a tournament server. That's not never gonna happen in the next patch. So, but my realistic answer, what I really want in the game, are PvP tooltips. To see, because different spells have different PvP modifiers, and there's absolutely no way of knowing what those modifiers are unless
Mm-hmm.
you search the spell on Wowhead and look at the spell modifier information that's down below. But if that was just in game, that would be so much easier. Because a good example, a really, really, really good example, is a rogue talent. I believe it's called Shadow Stalker, or Night Stalker.
Mm-hmm.
So, Night Stalker, the tooltip reads, while stealth is active, you move 20% faster and your abilities deal 50% more damage. And if you're a newer player, you're like, dang, my abilities will hit 50% harder in stealth.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But I believe it's only 10% in PvP. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so, but there's no way of knowing that from just reading the tooltip unless you've
Yeah.
been like, you know, staying ahead on every single patch of all time, like since the dawn of time, you would never know that. And like one thing I learned recently, is that this is part of the hot fixes coming in 9.1.5. Or I'm sorry, these are some of the hot fixes that came today, I believe. I don't know if you knew this, but healer mana regeneration is specific to each spec.
Yep.
So throwing out numbers here, but we're going to say that baseline healer mana regeneration is 2,000 mana per 5 in Arena. Now, some classes like Resto Shamans have every class has nerfed mana regeneration in PvP, but some are nerfed more than others. So Holy Paladins have the worst mana per 5 in Arena. Resto Shamans have the best, I believe, and they might not have the best. I don't know. In any case, you would have no way of knowing this as a player. Like, this was a change, I believe, back in BFA, and it's just been the change. It's been the same way since BFA. So it's like, players should know these things, and it's just impossible unless you're gonna go dig through like years worth of patches. Like, you can't find these things anywhere.
So Wowhead is actually wrong, because I've done this. I've used Wowhead as when we're doing our spec dives, and I don't know, listeners, how many times have I been correct? I'm like, and the tooltip says da da da, and the special guest says no, actually it is it only CCs for 10 seconds, or only CCs for 5 seconds, not 20 seconds like the tooltip says. So Wowhead doesn't have it. Drustvar.com has it. They have all the adjustments on a special page there. There is a add-on you can get, but I agree. You should not have to go external to be able to see that. Somebody said that in the PvP, like once you actually get into instance PvP, it adjusts. But who has time to read a tooltip when you're getting hammered by an enemy?
Yeah. Oh, that would take so much time too. Like, there's so many things you need to check, like conduits. Like, some conduits are nerfed in PvP. Like, are you really gonna go read every single conduit in the middle of an arena? No. And so it's just like, why? That just seems like a very basic, fundamental.
I agree.
Like,
I agree.
That would benefit everyone.
I agree. Sure. I would love it. I'm going to cheat and use one that I tweeted about earlier, and I would love for a way to send honor to alts.
Oh yeah.
So use, I don't know, like Marks of Honor or whatever, and buy a BOA item that you can send across the mail to an alt to send them honor or whatever. So then you're not having to grind thousands of points of honor on multiple characters. You could just do it on your main, and then and now I'm gonna play my alt, send over a bunch of honor. Now they can buy a bunch of honor gear. Only up to rank 3 though, because like we talked about, then or whatever. I'm being funny, but like, do that, right? So that's the one thing I would add into the 1.5 is a way to move honor around. All right. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on, and we will get into the PvP news, and let's close this out. I need to do that again because I didn't do it correctly.
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
Yeah. Who opened up an extra large can of whoop ass there, Millhouse? So, man, I love Millhouse. He's such a great bumper. So we talked previously, there was the Dungeon Cleave Cup number 2, which was going to be heroic dungeon running speedruns. So I ended up finding, they made a website, really cool. It's dungeoncleave.com. Go over there and check it out. Have they created a Discord for a bunch of conversations. Long story short, Dungeon Cleave got canceled. Not enough people signed up. So hopefully now with the announcement of phase 2 and everything coming up soon on the PTR and then everything else, should be enough people joining back into the game that they'll get enough players to sign up for the next Cleave Cup. To be determined. They'll announce it again. And once we find out, we'll announce it here. So in the meantime, though, if this is something that interests you, please go over to the website. Interact with the people, go over to their Discord, talk to them, let them know you're interested, and hopefully with enough interest they will put in the effort to build another cup. The Occasional Excellence Guild This is fun. I ran across this one by accident over on Twitch. I was surfing. You ever search Twitch and like scroll through just under the World of Warcraft and see who's doing what?
Hmm.
I found this guild. They were doing a fun tournament, a 2v2 tournament, and so what they did is they paired experienced PvPers with inexperienced players from the guild, and they ran a 2v2 tournament. It was awesome.
Nice.
It was really fun to watch. So quick congrats to Morgoth and Bus for winning with their enhanced Shaman Havoc DH comp. It was pretty fun. And I'll have there's a link to the VOD. It's run by Vonnie Cakes over on Twitch. So you can watch their whole tournament. I feel bad. So apparently, I talked to him afterwards. Apparently, this was like they decided they were going to do this like 3 days before they actually ran it, and he had no experience running a tournament before. Didn't know the spectator UI, didn't know how to control anything. So like as the tournament's going, he's getting better at like controlling camera and running all the spectate, running the arena games and the war games in the spectator UI. And just, yeah, it was. So if you want to avoid the go into like, an hour into or skip the first few matches, he's much better after that.
Yeah.
But no, he did great. He did great. And talking with him, he's actually moved over. He joined into the Oasis Discord, so he's over there as well. And I believe the plan is that he's going to run a few more tournaments because he really enjoyed doing that.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about this just before. The AWC Season 2 circuit finished just on the weekend there on the 29th. Did you get a chance to catch any of the games or no?
No, I didn't. I didn't actually watch this last tournament.
Okay. No worries. I will say I caught it, but my memory is really bad. I'm not the best at recapping things for that, but there were some pretty memorable moments. There was a few long games, but there were quite a few. The hype was real, like it was tangible, with the amount of stress between OTK, Golden Guardians, and just people fighting for that fourth spot. It was palpable, and the casters did a good job at maintaining that stress. As did, Sea-Doo was pretty active on Twitter, talking about how much anxiety he had about it. Just like he was stressing. He said he was more stressed out watching games than actually playing, because whether he was going to get fourth spot or not, it was pretty tense. Trying to think what else. Hot fixes.
Mm-hmm.
I know you know about these ones. What hot fixes caught your eye?
To be honest, I thought they were quite boring. But they did nerf Reso Druid and Reso Shaman mana regeneration slightly.
Mm-hmm.
And then they nerfed the condensed Animosphere, which is one of the new conduits, which I believe it's every time you get struck by an attack, you heal for a certain amount, and this can only happen, I believe, once every 10 seconds. It just gives your character like a little bit of healing throughout the entire game, but it's pretty good. Like, it does add up to a lot of healing over time. So I think they just wanted to tone down sort of these sort of passive survivability, more passive survivability effects. Yeah, for sure. But some people are a bit upset. I wasn't too upset. I'm like, whatever. Some people are a bit upset that there weren't some fixes to overperforming classes right now, or adjustments there. But maybe that's probably going to come in the next few weeks. I'm fairly optimistic about that.
Well, actually, that's a good point. I skipped over it because there was absolutely no real tangible comment on it, other than they said that they were going to do some more class tuning in 9.1.5. But
yeah,
technically this was class tuning, and all they did was nerf some mana, and Kevin got nerfed slightly too.
Yeah, everyone's favorite.
So, But yeah, hopefully in the upcoming patch we'll see some of those overperforming classes be maybe toned down a little bit and some of the underperforming buffed. But yeah, I didn't see anything else really on the PvP side other than, and I was kind of surprised actually. So with the condensed Animosphere being 50% nerfed, I thought that was really big because I didn't think it was doing that much of a healing difference. But if what you're saying is true, is that it was actually healing that much, then it makes sense that they would half it. So
Yeah.
all right. So this is your moment to shine. The video we kind of hinted at it before, but the video that you did through Skillcapped
Yeah.
outlining the changes and just where we're at now with Shadowland PvP. I really like this. It really opened my eyes as to, because what we're feeling, and it's really hard when you're feeling something to really analyze it to understand why something is happening the way it is.
Yeah.
But I loved how you did that. How you, like, and basically it was brought down to defensives being a little bit weaker, critical strike being unnerfed slightly, right?
Yeah.
And basically, I guess the nuts and bolts of it is just all the different modifiers that are now in Shadowlands that takes
Yeah.
a seemingly benign ability and making it just a monster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I wanted to kind of explore the question, like, okay, Shadowlands, people are dying really quick. People are like, oh my gosh, I died to this monk really fast. What happened? And I think it's easy to kind of look at these things from a very surface level, like, oh, I died to spinning crane kick, and that must be broken. But exploring that question is, well, what is broken about spinning crane kick? Like, use it on a dummy, it doesn't hit very hard. Well, it's all these other little micro interactions that happen with your character, and it's not just monks, it's other classes too, that
Mm-hmm.
make certain abilities of yours just hit insanely hard. And just from a player perspective, it can be kind of confusing sometimes as to why you died and why someone just killed your character in 0.1 seconds. And so I think it's good to sort of explore that question and maybe explore that question a bit beyond the surface level explanation and think about, well, what has been the trajectory of game design up until this point that have led to the game we have now?
Mm-hmm.
So I try to explore a lot of these questions, and I was really excited working on it. It was really fun. It's a bit stressful, but it's fun. Stress is fun sometimes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I hope people first of all enjoy it, and I really hope it can kind of open up a dialogue at the developer level. I mean, that'd be sort of the dream, right? To have this be an office conversation at Blizzard is like, well, what are the consequences to game design, and how?
Mm.
I'm sure they already have these conversations, but it's like, you know, how cautious should we be, or how should we experiment with game design in the future if this is a potential consequence of just a few small changes?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a fun little project, and
I like it.
yeah,
Well, and
interesting way to spend a few days.
yeah, and you did get some traction there. I mean, Jared, or VHell on Twitter there, he asked for the text version of it so he could share it. I guess, how do you put it? There's some people that just don't have enough time to watch that, and he was hoping for something that was uh, digestible in another way so that he could
Yeah,
share it with those people that perhaps didn't have time to sit down and watch this amongst, I don't know how many other pieces of feedback they're getting from all the other areas of the internet, right? So
yeah,
hope
and
go.
I was gonna say, like, you get all this feedback from Twitter, you get all these screenshots, but they don't really ever paint the full picture. It's
Mm-hmm.
always an incomplete story, and so kind of again, that's what I wanted to do with this, is kind of paint a more complete picture of game balance, because that often is lost in in social media conversations.
Yes. Yeah. A picture is definitely worth 1,000 words, but sometimes a picture is only part of the story. So
Right, right,
I
right,
like
right.
it. I think you did a great job. So,
Oh, thank you.
oh, no, thank you. Uh, last couple items. Okay, so announced today, same faction battlegrounds are coming in. So this was just announced today with the patch that they did. Um, sorry, just doing so. How does this go? So they've been tweaking around on the Burning Crusade during the same faction battlegrounds. They brought him in as a test for a weekend, then did it again for a week, took him away. Now they're back permanently. So in Burning Crusade, if you queue up, it's going to try to queue up against the opposing faction. If that takes too long, it'll put you up against the same faction. Done. That's going to be for the rest of Burning Crusade. It's going to be permanent. In the meantime, until they can figure out a more elegant solution, they are temporarily limiting pre-mades to 5-person teams. So you can't, you won't be able to queue into a 40-person pre-made Alterac Valley, which isn't a bad thing, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But I know there's some people that don't agree with that. But again, it's just temporary until they figure out another solution because of this same faction battleground stuff that's going on.
Yep.
Let's see here. Another one. So I'm pretty sure that we've talked about this item before on this add-on, but I can't remember, so I'm going to highlight it again. Is the WoW Arena Logger. So apparently this one, so it's a really cool add-on. It's basically like a combat logger, but then you can also use it on the website, and it'll even take into consideration positioning. So you actually replay an arena map. So if you didn't, let's say you don't have the ability to record the video, you can at least record this, and it'll show all the abilities going through and see where the players are on the map and everything else. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's a Reddit post I'm gonna have in the show notes. It includes a couple tips, such as if you lose, don't just AFK out of the game, because then it doesn't record it, because it it's something on the WoW backend that happens with a lot of the PvP add-ons that are data logging. You
Yeah.
have to forfeit the game to be able to close out the game properly, and it closes up the file, I guess. And somebody else was saying that they did have a couple issues with this causing some disconnects. So just be prepared for that. That could be. I found that with if you're using a non SSD, the read write times, if it's taking too long, it will sometimes cause you to DC. So, and I know with the advanced combat logging, there's a whole bunch of extra information there. So I find SSDs are pretty much the only way you can do that and not end up in some sort of a DC situation. Last but not least, watch out for earthworms. Earthworms are horrible, horrible animals, but they're also a really cool pet that hunters have now. They have a worm pet that will burrow, and with the I'm gonna forget the ability that hunters have, but it reduces the ability, the cooldown of the ability by 50%. So this pet, they can put it onto a flag, it will burrow, and literally then the hunter can go anywhere in the map and still actually literally spin the flag. So and because the pet burrows, you can't target it when it's down underneath the ground. So what it'll do is you go to do something, it interrupts you, and then it burrows right away, and you can't do anything. So yeah, it's how did somebody say, it's about the only reason why anybody is bringing a hunter anymore to a game right now, because otherwise they're too squishy. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a thing. Anyways, Just want to, if anybody's going to play Battlegrounds and they're wondering why they're unable to capture a flag because of some pet that's underneath the ground and they can't target, it's probably a worm. Yeah, that's about it. I don't know about you. I'm running out of gas. I'm spent on energy.
We're all gas, no brakes. This podcast. This is
This is go. It was awesome.
That's right. Yeah.
Big. Do you have anybody you want to shout out?
Shout out to my friend Jax. Plays Rogue. Been my arena partner for almost a decade now, and he helped me make he inspired me for parts of my new video, and so I appreciate that. I always like talking about PvP, and Jax is one of the people I like to talk to the most. So shout out to Jax.
Nice. Thank you, Jax. On the flip side, I'm going to shout out Anna because I know she helped you out with a bunch of the clips that you had.
Yeah.
She beat me to it. I was going to do something, and then she provided a bunch. I was like, she's got it. So
she has them quick.
She's on the hot button when it comes to clips.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know where she has them all stored. I think she has like a short list somewhere on a file with a bunch of hyperlinks in her. I don't know what, but she's got a bunch of them. But she's awesome.
Yeah.
I do also want to shout out the Patreons to the Warcraft Radio website. So anybody that has a Patreon subscription, thank you very much. Because of you, you're helping support everything that we're doing with Warcraft Radio, as well as the other podcasters and a bunch of other special projects they have going over there, such as the Warcraft Radio Race to World First coverage they did with the last race and the one previous to that. And yeah, if you are not already a patron in Patreon, head on over to the warcraftradio.com and you'll find a little link there, and you can sign up for basically whatever amount you feel comfortable with. And with that, you'll get some of the other perks, such as I believe there's a monthly newsletter and a few other items. I'm not exactly up to speed on everything they're doing over there on the Patreon side, but yeah. I really appreciate it personally, and I know everybody over at Warcraft Radio also appreciates it.
Yeah.
Big. Normally I'd ask Andel to do this, but he's not here, so I'm going to ask you if you can list it off where our listeners can find us.
I can definitely do that. If you want to learn more, you can contact us directly with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Warcraft Radio Discord.
Indeed. And you can also visit the Warcraft Radio website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at warcraftradio.com. And this directory has a review system, so head on over there and tell everyone what you think of the shows that you enjoy. Links to all these will be in the show notes, and I want to thank everyone for listening. We'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
Yes, yeah.
And I need to click something. Oh, there it is.